Let's dive right in. Centuries-old mysteries have finally been solved. Number 10. The Sliding Stones of Death Valley. Imagine standing in a dry, cracked lakebed where life gave up hope thousands of years ago. Then you see massive, heavy boulders moving on their own. Not just rolling, but sliding, leaving long, winding tracks in the dirt like they're racing without engines. This is the mystery of Racetrack Playa in Death Valley, California. For decades, people were scratching their heads, blaming magnetic fields, or bored aliens, or even prankster ghosts. It's pretty creepy to think these rocks might be alive, right? But then science, the ultimate fun killer for conspiracy theories, stepped in back in 2014. A group of researchers, either super curious or just bored, slapped GPS trackers on the stones and set up cameras. Turns out there were no supernatural forces at play. The secret was just a perfect, super rare weather combo. Rain creates a thin layer of water that freezes overnight into sheets of floating ice. As the sun melts the ice a bit, just a gentle breeze is enough. Those ice sheets push the rocks across the slippery mud. Basically, nature is playing a game of curling all by itself in the desert. No ghosts, just basic physics working its magic when no one is watching. Number 9. The mysterious bloop sound. The ocean is dark, scary, and massive, and we've barely explored any of it. In 1997, NOAA picked up an incredibly loud, mysterious sound. It was a low-frequency hum coming from the deep Pacific. They named it the bloop. So, what's the deal? This sound was so loud that sensors over 3,000 miles apart picked it up. For comparison, the loudest sound a living creature makes is a blue whale. But the bloop was way louder than that. Naturally, everyone's imagination went wild. People thought it was definitely an ancient sea monster or some massive Godzilla sleeping on the ocean floor. Everyone was ready for the apocalypse or, at the very least, a real-life Godzilla movie. But the truth turned out to be way less exciting than a giant sea monster. After years of data, scientists confirmed the sound was actually just massive icebergs cracking. When an iceberg the size of a skyscraper breaks off an Antarctic glacier, it sends a massive shockwave through the ocean. So, what we thought was a monster's roar was really just Antarctica cracking up because of global warming. Number 8. The Mary Celeste. Nothing screams mystery quite like a ghost ship drifting in the middle of the ocean. Sails still up, cargo untouched, but not a single soul on board. Music? That's the story of the Mary Celeste, found back in 1872. When rescuers boarded, everything looked weirdly normal. The cargo was full, there were 6 months of food, and all the crew's stuff was exactly where they left it. There were no signs of pirates, no blood, and no storm damage. The theories were endless. Giant squids, aliens abducting people, or the crew just going crazy and jumping overboard. The most logical theory, and the one experts generally accept, is actually just human error. The Mary Celeste was carrying 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. Modern investigators think some barrels leaked, filling the hold with toxic fumes. A spark or pressure change likely caused a small blast. Not enough to sink her, but enough to blow off the hatches. Captain Briggs, fearing the ship would turn into a fireball, ordered everyone into the lifeboat to wait it out, tethered to the main ship. But the rope snapped, the ship drifted away, and the crew was left stranded in a tiny lifeboat in the middle of nowhere. Basically, they died because they were too cautious and got ditched by their own ship. Number 7. The mysterious collapse of the Maya civilization. Have you ever wondered how such a powerful empire just vanished? How did people who built massive pyramids and calculated star charts more accurately than your phone just disappear in the 9th century? Their grand cities were left to the jungle, and the people vanished like Thanos snapped his fingers. For years, history books and clickbait TV shows have thrown around all kinds of theories. Strange plagues, bloody civil wars, or of course everyone's favorite idea. Aliens took them home after they finished their real estate project on Earth. But the reality is way harsher and more of a warning than any sci-fi movie. Recent geological studies and lake sediment analysis show the Maya were victims of their own success. They went overboard with deforestation, It wasn't just for farmland. They burned massive amounts of wood to turn limestone into plaster for their flashy buildings. That mass deforestation changed the local climate and triggered brutal century-long droughts. No trees meant soil erosion, no rain, and failed crops. Their whole civilization starved just because they preferred shiny white walls over keeping their trees. Basically, they loved themselves into extinction. Number 6. The deadly curse of the pharaoh. Being an archaeologist in the 1920s meant digging up deserts, finding loot, and trying not to get cursed by a 3,000-year-old mummy. When Howard Carter opened King Tut's tomb in 1922, the world held its breath. Then the expedition's sponsor, Lord Carnarvon, died months later from blood poisoning. Apparently, all the lights in Cairo went out when he died, and his dog back in England howled and dropped dead. Sounds like a cheesy B-horror movie, right? The media went wild, spinning stories that anyone who disturbed the pharaoh would face a gruesome death. Before blaming ghosts, science stepped in to clear the mummy's name. In reality, Carnarvon died because he nicked a mosquito bite while shaving, leading to a fatal infection. That was just a common health risk before antibiotics existed, not some dark magic. Besides, of the 58 people who entered the tomb, only 8 died within the next decade. The rest lived long lives, including Howard Carter, who lived another 17 years after opening the tomb. The curse was just toxic mold in the tomb and the media blowing everything out of proportion. The real killer wasn't a curse, it was just a mosquito bite and a bad shaving habit. Number 5. The truth about the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda is the ultimate urban legend for pilots and sailors. Planes go in and lose signal. Ships vanish without a trace, and compasses spin like they're malfunctioning. Rumors claim there are space portals, Atlantis, or secret bases testing time travel weapons down there. Even Christopher Columbus reportedly saw weird lights in this area. It sounds like the most dangerous place on Earth, where physics just takes a day off. But let's look at the facts. The Bermuda Triangle is actually one of the busiest shipping and flight lanes on the planet. According to insurance statistics, and those guys are all about the money, the accident rate isn't any higher than anywhere else with this much traffic. So, what about all those mysterious disappearances? Scientists point to methane hydrates as the likely culprit. The seafloor here is packed with huge compressed deposits of methane gas. Sometimes these release massive gas bubbles that lower water density, causing ships to lose buoyancy and sink in seconds. Add in sudden tropical storms and freak waves up to 100 feet tall, and you've got a recipe for disaster. No ghosts here, just Mother Nature playing a bit rough. Number 4. How the Egyptians built the pyramids. Back to Egypt, the absolute favorite topic for everyone obsessed with aliens. How on earth did ancient people without cranes or trucks move 2.5-ton stones across miles of desert for their giant Lego project? For years, the internet and the History Channel have been screaming that aliens definitely did it, because apparently people back then were too dumb for math and physics and needed help from green-skinned buddies. The truth is actually embarrassing for those wild sci-fi theories. Physicists at the University of Amsterdam found a clever trick they literally drew on their own tomb walls. We just totally ignored it. When pulling huge stones on sleds across the sand, friction was their biggest enemy. But if you pour just the right amount of water on the sand, friction gets cut in half. Wet sand sticks together, creating a solid track instead of piling up and stopping them. Just one guy pouring water in front of the sled was enough to solve the mystery we thought needed sci-fi tech. Turns out their secret weapon was just wet sand. Number 3. The Kraken. For thousands of years, sailors came home with wild stories about a massive tentacled beast that could crush ships like soda cans. The Kraken was the ocean's scariest legend, a bloodthirsty monster ready to drag entire fleets down to the abyss. Ancient maps even featured it smack in the middle of the sea as a warning to travelers. Everyone thought it was just drunken tall tales or hallucinations from being at sea too long. But this time, the drunken sailors were actually onto something. The Kraken is real, just not a myth. It's actually the giant squid. We thought they were extinct, or just a myth until their carcasses started washing up on shore. And more recently, we've even caught them on film swimming in the deep, dark ocean. They grow up to 40 feet long, with eyes the size of dinner plates and suckers lined with jagged teeth. While they aren't attacking ships like in the movies, seeing a bus-sized squid surface would make any 18th century sailor lose his mind and swear he saw a monster. Number 2. The Dyatlov Pass Mystery. In 1959, 9 Russian hikers set up camp on the Ural Mountains and never made it home. When rescuers found the scene, it looked like a horror movie set by a psychopath. Tents were slashed open from the inside. The victims had bolted into the snow in sub-zero temps, wearing almost nothing. Some had crushed skulls and broken ribs, but with zero bruising on the outside. And, most disturbing of all, some were found missing their tongues and eyes. That was enough to fuel 60 years of internet theories about Yetis, secret Soviet weapons, or failed alien abductions. But in 2021, the mystery was finally solved, and the hero of the story was Disney's Frozen. I'm not kidding. Swiss scientists used the exact same snow simulation algorithm that made Frozen to prove a rare slab avalanche happened. A massive slab of snow crushed them in their sleep, causing the internal injuries that made them panic, cut the tents, and flee into the cold. As for the missing eyes and tongues, that was just wildlife scavenging later on. So, no monsters, just physics and Disney's graphics team working together to solve a bone-chilling cold case. Number 1. The Fate of Amelia Earhart. This is the final boss of aviation mysteries. In 1937, aviation legend Amelia Earhart vanished without a trace while flying around the world. For nearly a century, people thought she ran out of gas, got captured as a spy, or faked her death to live in the U.S. It was a romantic, tragic story about a pilot lost in the blue, but modern science, with all its brutal honesty, has a much darker answer. Researchers now believe she didn't crash into the ocean but landed on the remote Nikomaroro Island. They found bones that were misidentified, a 1930s makeup compact, and radio distress signals sent for nights after she vanished. But the nightmare? The island is infested with coconut crabs. These are massive land crabs with giant claws and a crazy sense of smell for flesh. The heartbreaking theory is that she survived the landing but eventually died and was eaten by these giant crabs. No mystery here. Just a tragic fight for survival against nature. And that's the truth behind the mysteries that used to haunt us. No ghosts, no aliens, just science and nature doing their thing. If you found this interesting, stay curious and keep asking why. Because asking questions is how we get closer to the truth. Like, share, and follow for more mysteries that seem impossible but have crazy answers. That's it for now. See you in the next one. Yeah,